Good morning from Mission Control Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where NASA flight controllers are working with their Russian counterparts across the ocean at the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Korolyov outside of Moscow, preparing to bid farewell to the Pir's docking compartment, the venerable module that has been docked to the International Space Station for almost 20 years, serving as a docking port and an airlock for dozens of Russian segment-based spacewalks. You are looking live right now at the ISS Progress 77 cargo craft, the unpiloted cargo craft that is docked to Pir's at the bottom of your screen. In just a few minutes, this combination of spacecraft will undock from the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station, back away to a safe distance from the International Space Station for a 17.5-minute deorbit burn by the Progress's engines to send the two craft into a destructive entry over the Pacific Ocean. The undocking time is scheduled for 5:56 a.m. Central Time, 6:56 a.m. Eastern Time. The undocking command to be sent by Russian flight controllers, 5:53 a.m. Central, 6:53 a.m. Eastern. That will initiate the opening of the hooks that have held the Pir's docking compartment in place to the Zvezda service module for the past 20 years. It will be the Progress's engines that will fire later today to send it and Pir's into an entry back into the Earth's atmosphere, where it will break up a few minutes after encountering the first traces of Earth's atmosphere. The pieces of Pir's and the ISS Progress 77 that arrived at the International Space Station to dock to Pir's back in February will hit the Pacific Ocean harmlessly a few minutes later. We'll talk about the whole timeline of events in just a moment. Today's undocking was delayed from Friday until this morning to allow more time for Russian flight controllers to check out the propulsion and navigation systems on the new Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module, which launched last Wednesday from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, and which is currently en route to the station for a scheduled docking on Thursday, with all of its systems continuing to be checked out and reported by Russian flight controllers to be in good shape. The Pir's docking compartment was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan back on September 14th, 2001. This video actually from September 16th, 2001, showing the final approach for docking by the Pir's docking compartment. It linked up again to the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station on September 16th, where it has been ever since. The first spacewalk ever conducted out of Pir's was conducted back on October 8th, 2001 during Expedition 3 by Russian cosmonauts Vladimir Dezhurov and Mikhail Turin, who began to hook up cables between the Pir's and the Zvezda service module to make the Pir's operational. The first vehicle that actually docked to the Pir's docking compartment was the Soyuz TM-32 spacecraft that did a relocation from Zvezda to Pir's back on October 19th, 2001, before undocking for good from October 31st, 2001 to return that crew back to Earth. 11:04. Thank you. Here in Mission Control in Houston, Flight Director Greg Whitney is presiding over the Orbit 1 team of flight controllers, standing with the blue sweater in the middle of your screen, joined to his right by spacecraft communicator Jay Marshke, who is talking to the space station crew of Expedition 65 throughout the course of today's activities. Everything is in readiness for the physical separation of ISS Progress 77 and Pir's just 21.5 minutes from now. The timeline calls for, again, that undocking to occur at 5:56 a.m. Central Time. This will be after the hooks are opened and springs on both sides of the docking interface push off against one another to create the physical separation. 3 minutes after that, there'll be a firing of the Progress's engines, a brief firing to increase an opening rate that will ultimately result in the Progress and Piraeus moving to a safe distance away from the International Space Station. A 17-minute, 37-second firing of Progress's engines in a retrograde braking maneuver is scheduled at 9:01 a.m. Central Time, 10:01 a.m. Eastern Time. That will slow the Progress and Piraeus down by 425 meters per second, allowing the combined spacecraft to drop out of orbit for its entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. The first traces of the Progress and Piraeus encounter with the atmosphere is scheduled at 9:42 a.m. Central Time. About 3 minutes later, the two vehicles should begin to break up as heat around the two spacecraft reach about 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. That will cause a breakup of the spacecraft, with the first pieces of the destroyed spacecraft hitting the Pacific Ocean about 9:51 a.m. Central Time, 10:51 a.m. Eastern Time. The departure of the Piraeus docking compartment then will open up that vacant port on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station for Thursday's scheduled arrival of Naoka. The multi-purpose laboratory module launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan atop a Proton M rocket back on Wednesday. It arrived in orbit less than 10 minutes later. This is video of the launch that took place last Wednesday from the Baikonur Cosmodrome about 30 minutes before sunset. It was a flawless launch, leaving the Naoka in its preliminary orbit. It has conducted a series of rendezvous maneuvers using its big engine for the past several days. And again, today's undocking, which was originally scheduled for Friday, was moved back to today to allow Russian flight controllers a few more days to check out the multi-purpose laboratory module's systems, most particularly its propulsion system and its navigation system, the Core's automated rendezvous system, that will be used to automatically guide in the big MLM, the 23-ton, 43-foot-long multi-purpose laboratory module, for a docking to the soon-to-be vacated port on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station on Thursday morning. The multi-purpose laboratory module, which is en route to the International Space Station to replace the Piraeus docking compartment, will support a variety of different services and functions once it arrives and is activated and hooked up for full use. It will provide roll control for the International Space Station. It will provide propellant transfer between the Progress vehicles, the unpiloted cargo ships that will arrive in the months and years to come. It will also serve as a docking port for piloted Soyuz and unpiloted Progress vehicles. It will serve as a docking port for a node module, a multi-hatched docking port that is to be launched by the Russians out of Baikonur later this year for additional vehicles and components to be attached to it as the ever-expanding Russian segment of the International Space Station continues. It will also deliver and operate a European robotic arm for external scientific payloads. It will provide for an additional crew quarters. It will serve as an internal and external science operations platform, and will provide an additional toilet and electron oxygen generation system as the years go on. So the multipurpose laboratory module is next on deck for an arrival at the International Space Station on Thursday, but first order of business will be the departure of the Piraeus docking compartment that has served as a docking port and airlock for Russian spacewalks, dozens of Russian spacewalks since it arrived back in September of 2001. Later today, after the Piraeus has departed, robotic ground controllers here at Mission Control will send commands to walk off and relocate the Canadarm2 robotic arm from its current position on the Destiny laboratory of the International Space Station to the Zarya module's power power and data grapple fixture. Zarya was the first component of the International Space Station, launched back on November 20th, 1998. From its walked-off position on Zarya, the Canadarm2 later today will begin about a 7-hour survey, detailed photographic survey and video survey of the vacant docking port to ensure that it is clean. Russian flight controllers will keep their eyes peeled on that survey, looking for anything untoward that might necessitate a contingency spacewalk later this week by Russian cosmonauts Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov to clean that docking port before the multipurpose laboratory module arrives. It is highly unlikely that that will be needed, but the Russians are keeping it in their back pocket just in case they see something untoward that would require a spacewalk by Novitsky and Dubrov to clean that docking port. We're about 12 minutes away from the commands being sent to begin the opening of the hooks, holding the Pyr's docking compartment in place to the International Space Station. At the moment, the International Space Station and the Expedition 65 crew, which is on board conducting its normal Monday morning business of maintenance and scientific work, is currently skirting up the east coast of Africa, flying just over Ethiopia at the moment, moving from southwest to northeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator.
Copy, Peter. Thank you.
Some trivia and some numbers for you. There'll be a lot of numbers over the next few days, but for Pyr's, at the time of undocking coming up here in just a few minutes, the Pyr's will have been linked up to the International Space Station for 19 years, 313 days, 9 hours, 50 minutes, and 46 seconds. From the time of its launch back on September 14th, 2001, to the time it burns up in the Earth's atmosphere, the Pyr's will have spent 19 years, 315 days, 15 hours, 10 minutes, and 57 seconds of operational activity. Once again, you're looking at a good view of the unpiloted ISS Progress 77 cargo craft. At the top of your screen, docked to Pyr's, which is at the bottom. The Progress's engines will fire later this morning, just after 9 a.m. Central Time, for 17 minutes and 37 seconds in the deorbit maneuver to send it and the Pyr's docking compartment back into the Earth's atmosphere, where they will burn up. The International Space Station about to cross over the Arabian Sea, and just to the south of the Saudi Peninsula on this orbit of the Earth, everything is in readiness for the departure of the Pyr's docking compartment to end almost 20 years of service to the International Space Station. The departure of the Pyr's docking compartment coming up shortly, and the subsequent docking of the Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module planned for Thursday doesn't end this week's busy agenda at the International Space Station, as preparations are continuing down in Florida at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station for Friday's scheduled launch of an Atlas V rocket to send the Boeing Starliner spacecraft on an unpiloted test flight to the International Space Station, and a docking that is planned for Saturday, July 31st. Less than 7.5 minutes to go before the initiation of the opening of the hooks holding the Pирс docking compartment in place at the International Space Station.
Houston, station on 2 for CWCI fill.
Go ahead on 2.
I show 25 minutes has passed since the init. Are you ready for 4.1?
Affirmative.
Copy, in work.
Station Houston on 2, Megan. Before we lose comm, want to give you the go for the EDAVE swap. In step 1.1, you have Houston's go.
This is Mission Control Houston. A good view of the ISS Progress 77 cargo craft that arrived at the International Space Station, docking to the Pирс docking compartment back in mid-February, loaded with fuel. A lot of that fuel to be used within the next few hours to deorbit it and the attached Pирс docking compartment for a re-entry back into the Earth's atmosphere, where the two spacecraft will burn up harmlessly over the Pacific Ocean, opening up the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the station for Thursday's automated docking of the unpiloted Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module.
Okay, I copy. Safing is in place for the EDAVE swap, and the CWCI disconnect complete, and the PWD is returned to rehydration station. Can you confirm that the PWD is still out of service for us during this time frame?
That is correct.
Thanks.
This view coming from the cameras on the Progress 77 cargo craft, the familiar engineering cross-haired view from external camera on the unpiloted cargo vehicle that will be used to deorbit itself and the Pирс docking compartment a few hours from now. We're coming up on the 3-minute mark before commands are sent by Russian flight controllers to initiate the opening of the hooks that have held the piers in place for the past 2 decades. This view from a balcony camera overlooking the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow, where Russian flight controllers have been busy preparing for this day, this undocking of piers, as well as monitoring the systems on the Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module since its launch 5 days ago. We are passing soon back in range of our tracking and data relay satellite system to regain a downlink television capability from the International Space Station. Coming up on the 2-minute mark until commands are sent to begin the opening of the hooks. The command to open hooks now has been sent by Russian flight controllers to the Pirs docking compartment. The International Space Station now has been put in free drift, no thruster firings to perturbate the undocking of the Progress and the Pirs coming up momentarily. Command has now been issued to begin the opening of the hooks holding the Pirs docking compartment in place. This should take about 2.5 minutes or so to complete. Confirmation that the hooks are driving open. Again, this view from the Progress 77 cameras. Hooks continuing to drive, standing by for physical separation. Physical separation confirmed at 5:55 a.m. Central Time, 6:55 a.m. Eastern Time, as the International Space Station flew 260 miles over northern China. The Pирс docking compartment is free from the International Space Station that had been its home for the past 20 years. Having arrived at the station back on September 16, 2001, the Pирс docking compartment and the attached ISS Progress 77 backing away from the international outpost. Again, undocking occurring at 5:55 a.m. Central Time, 6:55 a.m. Eastern Time over northern China. Standing by for a thruster firing burn by the Progress to increase its opening rate with the Pирс docking compartment away from the docking port to which the combined spacecraft had been attached to. And the separation burn is now underway. And the burn is complete. Good burn. International Space Station flying over Mongolia. Everything continuing to go well with the departure of Progress and Pирс. So the docking port now open for the Naoka Multipurpose Laboratory Module, which is expected to link up to that Earth-facing port on Thursday morning. The deorbit burn by the Progress's engines is expected just over 3 hours from now, And again, that will be a 17-minute, 37-second deorbit burn, a braking maneuver to slow Progress and Pyrrhus down by 425 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit for its destructive entry into the Earth's atmosphere. Throughout the course of its 2 decades at the International Space Station, the Pirs docking compartment served as a docking port for dozens of Progress and Soyuz vehicles that arrived at the station, as well as an airlock for dozens of Russian-based spacewalks. That mantle now to be inherited by the Nyoka Multipurpose Laboratory Module.
Cell station on 2. Do you mind if I start the ActiWatch setup?
And Mark, you are go to start the ActiWatch.
Copy, thanks.
Even as dynamic operations are continuing, Mark Vande Hei, aboard the International Space Station, part of the Expedition 65 crew, talking to payload controllers at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. The crew continuing its Monday morning complement of maintenance work and scientific research. Progress and Pyrrhus flying over southeastern Russia, about to enter an orbital sunset, and about to begin a track from northwest to southeast. To recap, everything has gone off on time with the departure of the ISS Progress 77 cargo craft and the attached Pairs docking compartment, ending its 20-year run at the International Space Station, soon to be deorbited to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere less than 3 hours from now. Undocking occurring over northern China at 5:55 a.m. Central Time, 6:55 a.m. Eastern Time. Later today, robotic ground controllers here at Mission Control in Houston will send commands to walk off the Canadarm2 robotic arm onto a grapple fixture on the Zarya module to begin a detailed video survey of the vacant docking port, ensuring that there's nothing untoward that Russian flight controllers would see to impede the on-time arrival of the Nyoka multipurpose laboratory module planned for docking to that port on Thursday morning. Progress and Pairs now over the northwestern Pacific Ocean, beginning a swing from northwest to southeast in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, soon to enter an orbital sunset. Everything went very smoothly with today's undocking of Pairs. Which first arrived at the International Space Station on September 16, 2001. Here in Mission Control, flight controllers are continuing to watch the Progress 77 cargo craft back away slowly but surely from the International Space Station. It will continue to do so for the next 2 orbits to a safe distance away from the station for the initiation of the firing of its engines in a 17-minute, 37-second deorbit burn, a braking maneuver retrograde that will allow the Progress and the attached Pирс docking compartment to slow down and drop out of Earth's orbit for an entry into the Earth's atmosphere, where it will begin to burn up at about 9:45 a.m. Central, 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time. This is Mission Control Houston. Just to recap, the ISS Progress 77 cargo craft and the attached Pирс docking compartment undocked from the International Space Station about 17 minutes ago at 5:55 a.m. Central Time, 6:55 a.m. Eastern Time, currently moving steadily away from the International Outpost for a deorbit burn of the 2 components later this morning that will send Progress and Pирс into a destructive re-entry back into the Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean. With the Pирс docking compartment having completed 20 years of service at the outpost, the stage is now set for the arrival of the NIOCA Multipurpose Laboratory Module, which is en route to the station. More rendezvous maneuvers from its main engine scheduled tomorrow and Wednesday in preparation for its automated docking to the station on Thursday morning. Docking is scheduled at 8:24 a.m. Central Time, 9:24 a.m. Eastern Time. So with that, we'll wrap up our coverage of the departure of Progress and Pирс, and again we'll begin our coverage Thursday of NIOCA's arrival at the International Space Station. We're on the air at 7:30 a.m. Central, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time to bring you all the coverage of rendezvous and docking. Until then, have a good Monday. This is Mission Control Houston.
Back in pressure gauge and install a cap on it. And after that, deactivate the video equipment. Copy. I'll put that in work now, starting with closing DC PEV and moving on to removing the pressure gauge that we used for it and capping it, and then I'll turn off the TV. Good to read back.
Press the button on the wrong side, so now that I'm pressing the button on the correct side, it's working fine.
And we copy. Happy Monday, Mark.
We're off to a good start. And still about ActiWatch with that. In step 2.6, I'm checking with you all to verify good comm status.
Moscow station, stays to ground 1 for Oleg. Go ahead.
Yes, we just saw it. We got good status in the right watch. Thank you.
The condition of the rubber seals on the interface looks good. And that's based on analysis of the pictures I took. The pictures themselves are ready for you to take down. They are on OCA in a folder named STA_SO1. Copy. Thank you very much, Oleg, for that report.
Roger, station on 2 for in space.
Tama for in space.
You guys ready to pick up the conclude activity?
We are, and all you need to do is step 2. You've got to go there in step 2.4.
All right, step 2 in work.
Houston station on 2 for timeline.
Go ahead on 2.
Okay, the backup EDV swap is complete. I'm ready for the Part 2 CWC fill if you are.
Хьюстон, МКС канале СГ-2. Я заменила ЕДВУ на ту, которую вы порекомендовали. И хотела уточнить, можно начинать вторую часть перекачки?
And I copy 23 minutes.
Да, мы готовы. Приблизительное время перекачки 23 минуты.
We have a little bit of reconfig down here. Give us a few minutes. I'll call you back.
All right, sounds good.